Okay. Good morning to all of you beings in the rest of the world. It was winter when we started this morning, and now it's become summer. You know, if you'd related what's going on in this class to the people who were contemporary with Milarepa, they would have to consider that we were all amazing bodhisattvas that transcend space and time and meet in this kind of extraordinary place that's impossible to pin down. Right? And, you know, we go blah, take it for granted. How are we doing for? Yep. Would anyone like that?
I don't know. We're not expecting anyone else, so if anybody wants to sit here, they're very welcome.
So come forward. Come forward. For those of you sitting at the back, you might get the vision of Dharma, and you might get the sound of Dharma, but you won't get the full smell of Dharma. So come. For the full experience. If we get to the point where people are feeling too hot, I'm kind of aware that some people will feel just right, and you know, the three bears, just right, and some people will be too hot, and I don't. And if I want to start seeing you kind of going off like this, it's time to open the door, have a little bit of breeze. But let's sit together for a few moments. immeasurable expanse of nature in process, in faith and trust and wonderment, we give ourselves to this suchness, this seamless mystery of birth and dying. Spacious, loving, with feet solid in the earth, we nurture the hints of blessedness, the myriad faces and masks of luminous knowing. Moving as this flow of compassion and deepening inquiry, we engage with all beings in ways that support the integrity, the stability, and the beauty of the entire field of life and living, for the sake of all beings. Wisdom, compassion, non-clinging awareness. Sadhu. In a way, that verse that we just recited could be, the shortest form of the sadhana of Samantabhadra. The entire sadhana is contained in the verse, right? In kind of essence. Right? And sometimes you don't need a whole, multi-page, full-color, coil-bound, fancy-dancy thing to work with. But you can appreciate a reminder that you can take to heart. And one of the Samantabhadra, people go to immense lengths to try and say who and what Samantabhadra is. And so you have this kind of huge list of qualities and attributes and different ways of understanding what that image, if you like, what that kind of word is pointing towards. It's direct experience. But one of the, if you like, understandings doesn't help you much. Samantabhadra is suchness. Much more than some colorful being who sits on a lotus, right? It's the full Monty. Right? And in a way, this practice, which strangely enough, a lot of practices seem like, you have preparation work, so that's kind of like the beginning stuff, and then you slowly get into the practice. But in this practice, actually, we begin with the full realization, and then we start to add some detail. Right? And so this is really a life work, not a life work in terms of you never explore anything except what's in the pages of the sadhana. That'd be an incredibly narrow life. But a life's work in the sense that every once in a while it's a kind of it might be a touchstone for some beings that you find yourself, coming across again and again over time, and then you kind of forget about that. Not that you forget about the essence, but you forget about that particular reminder of the essence, and you're being reminded by other reminders of the essence. And slowly you come back and realize there's some universal process involved of a living creature, in a sense, growing into curiosity and understanding of the kind of the fullness of the living that they find themselves in, that they are participating in. So I'd like to just start this morning by making a little space for people to share any observations or discoveries or raise questions that might have come forth since we began to kind of use this metaphor. It's just a metaphor, right? It's not the metaphor that's important, right? You can meditate on the metaphor, trying to understand the metaphor. That's like, somebody sitting there, a carpenter who's busy trying to understand the hammer. And I kind of understand the hammer, yes, and it's this, and it's got wooden handles and metal handles, kind of puny little handles and big handles and handles made of diamond, right? There's all kinds of ways to get a handle on this, and you become an expert in hammers. You know, Buddhist hammers and Christian mystical hammers and naturalistic hammers and so on. And at the end, you die becoming a world expert in hammer, and you've never actually got round to using the hammer. Right? And the using of the hammer, in a sense, that's a ridiculous thing, because we can't not use the hammer. Right? Because what the using of the tool is the living of our life. Right? So, are there any observations or questions coming from, in a sense, utilizing this little first reminder? There's a lot in there. I wrote 3 books on it. They're all available for you. Right? The whole fundamental Buddhist practice is right there in the first paragraph. But you don't necessarily, it's not a matter of trying to grasp the whole Buddhist practice. It's working at where you work. And you know, it's like, I have 3 or 4 hammers. Wow. Different ones in the garage. Right? And sometimes I ignore the hammer and I use a saw. How outrageous, right? I kind of broke my lineage. I started off as a hammer lineage, and then I ended up as a saw lineage, and then someday as a chisel lineage. Right? We humans are incredibly obsessed by the kind of the shape of the supports that we use. And somehow we don't quite get round to allowing ourselves to be supported and suddenly find this kind of natural inquisitiveness coming forward. Okay. So, are there any observations or discoveries or questions or things that you'd like to raise at this point? And Stephen, you could keep an eye on the people online. We won't do people online, then people in the room or anything. We'll just whoever comes up. Okay. June, I think. June, you have to unmute yourself. Oops. June's going to have a cataract operation in a few days or weeks, and so in the meantime it's hard to find the unmute place. June, you need to somehow push a button and can you unmute her? Or
I think I've done it.
Oh, good. You're upside down, but that's all right.
Okay. Can you see me right way up?
Yes, and I can hear you right way up too.
Okay. Currently, I'm sort of eddying with the idea of the phenomenon of contact. That just considering Dharma as that which supports, and having a gentle look into that, came up the notion of contact. And I haven't gone any further with it, but I'm just kind of resting and toying with it. So I don't have a lot to say, but I am reminded of that whole round of existence that the Buddhists talk about, dependent on contact, arises, etc., etc. So I'm kind of watching and noticing contact, however it appears to me. That's about it.
It's a big one, doesn't it? I mean, does the contact, for example, as a physical thing, if you reach out and you make contact with the table, is the contact happening in your fingertip? Is it happening in your brain? If you don't have a brain, does it happen? I mean, you know, obviously, when we start to look into this simple notion of contact becomes not simple. It's kind of, what on earth are we talking about?
Yeah, and where do I begin and end, and you know, what is this notion of self and other, and on and on and on.
Oh dear, you're falling down the rabbit hole.
So I feel engaged. That's a good thing.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah. That's me.
Good. Nathan.
Exactly that, just off the back of what June's actually talking about.
Yes.
It's like walking to the edge of a cliff, and then there's just this big drop into something. Because like what you said at the start of the class, we've done it twice already, I think, or 3 times even. We started with the view, and then what now? You know? And so all of those questions, I don't think I'm alone in saying that it's just so radically just turning everything on its head, it feels like. You know, when I look at my experiences during the course of a day and I'm reflecting, and I'm just now, I'm sitting here, I can feel my feet on the floor, sensations all the way through my legs, you know, and then I apply a little bit of, say, an appreciation of the interconnectedness of the floor, the wood, who made it, etc., etc. And then I'll go and get busy with work, and I'll be boom, 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 and all of that sort of stuff. I just feel this all this time touch, and there's this crazy paradox between something that's quite fixed and something that's just so open. It feels like just such an extreme difference, you know. And I guess I'm probably just saying it because I just keep coming back to that over and over again. And even, you know, how you gave us those words to reflect on, the star, even that is just like, you know, it's right out there. And so, yeah, I don't have anything to really add, but just to say, I mean, my sister, when she was here last week, she asked about suchness, and I just keep thinking again and again,
Excellent.
yeah.
Your thinking stops.
I just basically, yeah, and then there's like these little words that will come up and just pick up things and whatever,
But how is the... Nathan,
yeah.
when the thoughts stop, because you're thinking about this and and just like, right?
Yeah.
And then is it possible for you,
Yeah.
this is an invitation, this is just an invitation,
Yeah.
that you might look into like how the universe is kind of weaving this feeling of, right? Like what are it just, I mean, again, coming back to very ordinary, what's going on in your body when that's happening? Where's your body? Because you can't go without a body, right? And what's happening in the air around you, in the light, in the field, in the trees, you know what I'm saying? It's like you start, how is the different participants in this dance giving rise to this point where it feels like immense and open and full of possibility? And how is this universe dancing when it kind of feels like there is no possibility to be open? It's just this, you're just doing this, and you forget you've called it forgetting about it. But actually, when we say we forget something, we talk about it as if there was something we left behind and we forgot it. But actually, when we forget it, this is a creative act in the present. Like, how does the universe give rise to forgetfulness? Right? And in a certain sense, what we're doing is we're just very gently, like by doing this, you're continually coming back to like grounding in the body, grounding in presence, you know, smiling, breathing, present, right? Grounding in this. And at the same time, very gently holding this question, which is more like holding an interest. right? It's like, it's not a question that has to be resolved. It's not a paradox. It's definitely different than the status quo public media presented state of the world, which is just about money, politics, power, manipulation, stupidity, fame, glory, stuff like that. Right? You know, the usual stuff. Right? And the thing is that this is speaking to the fact that you don't have this kind of quality of, it doesn't have to be even directed. You know what I mean? It's not like, whoa, what is this? It's just like the state of tremendous what isness is a state of not knowing. In the state of not knowing, what have you got to say about it? And then in our culture we're saying, oh, what's the matter with you? Stupid or something? You can't name it. If you can't name it, talk about it and so on. It doesn't exist. But you slowly, right, by visiting something like this in a very gentle way, right? I'm not talking about Buddhism or anything. I'm just talking about life experience. You have moments of this. You step out of the house and suddenly the quality of the air just hits you. And there's this kind of... And then you're back to getting in the car to go to work. Right? It's like you have these moments, right? These nurturing, they're hints at blessedness. The blessedness isn't some final good stuff that comes down. The ultimate blessedness is being engaged and interested in the living that you are. There is no higher blessing. Pretty wild. Right? It's not right. But the beauty, for me, the beauty of this sadhana, and it's not, yes, I put the words together, but these words have come out of years and years and years of study and practice of all sorts of other traditional sadhanas and practices. And so it's not like I invented it. And so when I say the beauty of it, I'm not praising my stuff, it's the teaching, it's the Dharma. Is that in these pages there is a kind of a natural progression, right, of that we can engage in, and it doesn't take us that far. It takes us a little ways, and then we familiarize with kind of moving in that. And what you'll find is that where you make this distinction between saying being at work and talking to people, and then sitting grounded and spacious and so on, but what you'll find is if you do consciously engage with this, after a few years, it might suddenly cross your mind one day that what before you took to be an extraordinary, spacious, open thing is actually kind of your normal setting mode whilst you're at work, and you've got new problems you never even imagined. Right? It gets more refined and more refined and more refined. I'd like to just...
There was one more question from Bill.
Bill. Which Bill? Bill Jeanette.
Arjun.
Morning.
Yeah, look, actually my question was almost exactly the same. I mean, I was thinking about the contrast between sitting in my strange tower on our block here, meditating in the mornings, which has got 360 degrees of windows, and it's a very spacious, it's just conducive to having that kind of open, like spacious, vibrant experience. And then going to my shed and getting underneath the lawnmower and fixing a gear on the lawnmower. And when I'm under there and I'm into the lawnmower, I'm kind of, it's quite extraordinary. Like there's a lot of learning going on. Like I'm problem solving and trying to figure it out, and I'm engaged and I'm alive in it. But I was making the same distinction that was just previously mentioned, and
yes.
That's just really helpful. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there anyone? We don't have a lot of material to cover today. There's no material to cover. Right? I mean, I almost said that and I caught myself, so I didn't say it. There's no material more engaging than the engaged living we're doing. Now, this sounds like absolutely crazy and it's hard to kind of sort out, but that's getting closer to reality. Yeah?
Can you say that again, Tim?
No. The universe never repeats.
Will be available on YouTube.
Can we just touch this first section again? And this first section actually begins with a language that says there's a you trying to do something. We're beginning with a sense of being someone trying to get somewhere. Right? We're not trying to, destroy that or anything like that. We're fine. We can work with this. Right? To cultivate this sadhana of naturalness, right? Of suchness, of Samantabhadra. Arrange yourself in a comfortable posture. And just reminding you, this attitude or this kind of angle of engagement, this posture, right? That feels strengthening. Now, if we go back to what we've been talking about today, the lawnmower or the office or the what have you, right? There's a quality that's there, and there's a quality that when you're not necessarily trying to get anywhere, but you're just resting. It's not that you're kind of gaga and you're just having a receptive experience. You're engaging with the experience, but there's a sense that this experience is more open than you imagine. Is there a strength in that? Does that feel strengthening? I mean, you're kind of, at that moment, you're able to welcome what's coming. You're able to engage with what's coming, right? You don't know what's coming. It's not like you're a master of your destiny and so on, and you've got this all together. But there's a kind of a readiness that's there. That what is strengthening, comfortable with strength, a comfortable posture, right? We're actually inviting ourselves to like, what really gives me a sense of strength? Because what you do is, like, if you get into a pickle, you rely on your sense of strength to get you out of the pickle. So what gets me out of the pickle is worry. That gives me strength, feeling worried. Verbalizing like crazy until my brains fall out. That gives me strength. Right? Closing my eyes and hoping it goes away. That gives me strength. It's almost like by going to the opposite, you begin to realize, no, actually, that doesn't give me strength. Right? What? Not bravado, not Sylvester Stallone. It's a quiet strength. It's a quiet strength of almost like a strength of absence of needing to defend anything. It's a strength of kind of, in a sense, some beings would even call it loving kindness, but that sort of puts it into too grand a kind of thing, and it's something we aim at. It's just very ordinary, right? And so you might think, oh, well, actually, I find my strength more in just being present and so on. And so maybe at that point you go for that. You're arranging yourself in a comfort, right? A comfortable posture, not some traditional thing of leaning on this or sitting in this way and my muscles are relaxed. How can I be comfortable when I'm just recovering from surgery? I've got stitches that are pulling, they hurt, I got drugs in my system that are kind of messing up my kind of clarity of function, right? And so you think, well, comfortable means getting closer to the ground. You relax your muscles and you kind of fall down like a jellyfish, right? Whereas instead of being uptight. But we can look more deeply into this, and we realize that we can find a sense of strength by, for example, surrendering with the pain even, with the discomfort, with the not knowing, with the impossibility. As soon as we begin to surrender, there's something, it feels good. Because you see, the thing is that you cannot give away this so easily, this sense of agency. Right? A sense of strength comes with a sense of agency, like, I can do. Right? And whereas most people, the strength, when they look about strength, is kind of juxtaposed with I can't do. If I stay here, I can be strong. Like confident. Right? But if I go there, it's... This is such a big one. How many minutes do you have to spend on arranging yourself in a comfortable posture, or even discovering what on earth that is? Or I wonder if the question of what is comfortable at this moment is something that we need to carry with us for years. It might not be just some little preparation thing, like, okay, now I got the comfortable posture, now get on with the real stuff. This is extremely real, right? We're kind of learning, like, with my body, with my energies, the way my mind goes, with my thinking. Arrange yourself in a comfortable posture, attitude, demeanor, disposition, way of being in relationship with other, right? Then making friends with your breathing. You see, there's still you and your breathing. We're still working in this realm of kind of self and other and separation. It's fine, right? Make friends with your breathing. Right? And the thing is that you think, oh, I have to stop everything I'm doing to make friends with my breathing. Right? Well, actually, while you're listening to me and thinking about this, I suspect I have like this kind of untestable assumption that even though you're listening to me and thinking about what I'm saying and maybe drifting off or going somewhere else, you haven't stopped breathing. Okay? Breathing is so kind of fundamental to us that we don't give it any thought until it stops, till it doesn't happen. Then, panic. Right? It's nothing like interrupting your breathing to interrupt your attention. You know what I mean, right? So the thing is, it's like, what would it mean to start to develop a friendship with this kind of rhythmic process, which is like so sensitive, it involves our whole being. Okay, here's one of the books, Breathing, the Natural Way to Meditate, right? The whole teaching of Anapanasati, right? It's all, it's not all there, but there's a whole book, right, involved with, in a sense, making friends with the breathing, learning to walk in friendship with the breathing. You like to hang out with your friends. If breathing is just a bother, that you had, I got to go and do my breathing method, my meditation now. What's that? Oh, I sort of hang out with my breath. I'll be there in half an hour, I'll come back. If you really make friends for like half an hour a day, you want to hang out with them all the time. Right? A kind of thing. It's like if you're developing a friendship with it. It's pleasurable to be around. And with friendship, the beginning of a friendship, you have to go, oh, who are you? What are you doing? How are you doing? And you're checking out, is this okay? Is this okay? Because you're not quite sure where your boundaries are and how strong the friendship is. But when the friendship gets really strong, right? You can be just happy with them, and you can be happy without them. You can be happy that they're doing something different. right? You just kind of feel supported and pleasured and so on of this mysterious thing called friendship. Well, imagine, I'm going on like this because I'm trying to give a kind of tactile feeling. It's like breathing meditation is so much more than just being a judge watching your breath go by at the gate, right? You're making friends with your breathing. So we're doing this now while we're talking. Making friends with your breathing. Invite, right? Kind of invitalize your entire body, mind community. Body, brain, mind community, as I have said. I think I'm slowly thinking I'm going to kind of shorten it to 3. Right? Body, mind, community. And then I'll make a little explanation to remind people that their brain is part of their body. Right? But in a sense, it's like my body. You kind of have a sense of what your body is. Right? Invite your body. Okay, do that. You've got some kind of sense of what your mind is, even though you don't want to analyze it too carefully. Otherwise, you won't know what it is. But everyone knows what I got a mind. I mean, people say, what's on your mind? Nobody goes, what's that? What's on my mind? Oh, where's my mind? I'll look on top of it, like what's on the table. Right? I mean, we use the word mind all the time. We assume we have minds. We say, oh, so-and-so's lost their mind. Right? I mean, this first stage is just very ordinary. This is ordinary stuff. Making friends with your breathing. Invite your body, mind, community. And this is beginning to realize that you live as an extended multi-dimensional whakapapa. Right? Your community of family, your community of patterns of thinking and emotion and feeling and culture, and right? It's really obvious, I think, to people. It doesn't take a lot of looking to realize that you exist in community. A lot of people don't know this, but that's not because it's hard to see. It's because they don't look. Right? I mean, you can imagine yourself, you go up and you go, well, we send people into space, right? And up there they breathe bottled air that came from Earth. They drink bottled water that came from Earth or recycled water that runs through the whole system, right? They step outside of their spaceship and they still have an umbilical cord that tethers them to... If you stepped outside that spaceship with no gear, right, you would find that your experience would be radically changing really quickly. Right? We exist in community. Who's making this oxygen that we're breathing anyway? We don't need them. I'm not interested. They're just the kind of servants who live in the basement and we couldn't care, like give them a crumb to keep them alive. Pay a few extra dollars every time you buy an airplane ticket so that they can maybe fund some forest in the Amazon, a little bit more trees and so on. We need the oxygen. Okay. But we pay it lip service. We're not really that concerned. We don't have, an intimate relationship with this. Right? Body, mind, community. Invite your whole body, mind, community to settle. And for people who have had years and years and years of, for example, meditation and say experience of studying Buddhist philosophy and practice and so on and so forth, allowing all this means something to them. If you're brand new and you've never heard of Buddhist philosophy, it means something. Invite your body, and you do it the way it's meaningful for you. That's the work you do. There's not something special out there. So you're sitting in your chair, you're just kind of letting your body settle, letting the whole space, right, to settle. And so it's kind of like, and you're settling into a place that feels, that settledness is the stillness. So it's increasingly still. Right? It could go to being pristine stillness, right? Right? And vibrantly awake presence, a kind of an engagement, and at the same time settled. Right? And in a way, if we get skilled in this, we take this all the way through as far as it's possible for a human being to take. There's nothing. This is you will discover what's called Samantabhadra. You will go, oh yeah, I can name it this now, or I can name it suchness. But it's only like you can't. It's the it doesn't change. It's just that you can't name it that way. You know, in a sense, it's not yours. You don't have a handle on it. You don't feel this is your place of living. Now we go further, right? If, for example, you find that there's just, you might feel that somewhat settled like this, and for example, my breathing, the natural way to meditate, foundations of mindfulness and walking in wisdom, right? These are just filled with all sorts of different angles of inquiry that enrich this ability to invite our body, mind, community to settle. It's not that you should be doing this. It's not that the only path is by studying Satipatthana and the four foundations of mindfulness and so on. But the kind of hints and the supports that these teachings are giving, walking with awareness, right, and so on. There's always, all of these are in a sense me practicing mindfulness, right? I practice Anapanasati. I practice foundations of mindfulness. I do this forest walking with supports, right? Fine, don't worry about it. Just do it, right? Let you work on it, and it works on you, and new possibilities that you can't imagine grow out of it, right? In a certain sense, we could say this first section is the whole of the Theravadan teaching. It's all kind of there. And then in this next section, bingo, we get the Mahayana teaching. Right? Contemplating Bodhicitta. And I don't want to try and fully expound on bodhicitta right now, because the section itself, in a sense, reveals what it means. But in a very simple, just reminding ourselves, bodhi is like awakening, flowering, blossoming. And chitta can mean mind, but it can also mean heart, and it can mean intent. So it's a kind of like a blossoming of intent, a blossoming of the heart, of the beingness, right? And sometimes we say, well, our understanding of bodhicitta in the Tibetan and in the Mahayana vehicles, particularly in the Tibetan vehicles, contemplating and unfolding this mystery called bodhicitta is incredibly huge and important, right? So it's not just a simple little thing that you get or you don't get. And so at the beginning, bodhicitta is more like a kind of an aspiration, aspiration bodhicitta, which it manifests as a kind of a manner of living that yearns to develop and realize and comprehend wisdom and compassion. It's kind of like a really deep thing. It's kind of a deep yearning in your being to be of service, to help, to live a meaningful life, to share, right? You can relate to this. This is bodhicitta. This is not second-rate bodhicitta, right? This is bodhicitta as is realized by a person at this stage in their journey. Gradually, this yearning, this kind of, you might say, aspiration bodhicitta, becomes what we might call application bodhicitta. We begin to kind of learn, it's a manner of living that reveals wisdom and compassion. First one is just kind of yearning for it. You don't even know what it is, you know. But now we're starting to live in a way that begins to kind of reveal this inquisitiveness and curiosity of your own mind, which is both playful and precise at the same time, and compassion and love and so forth, right? It's sort of like it comes out of your experience. So now it's like this is the same bodhicitta, it's the same heart intent, but now it's manifest by somebody who's kind of more. They don't have to yearn for it. They're engaging with it, and they, in a sense, they are cultivating these hints at blessedness. They are holding these hints. They are valuing these hints. They're working with these hints. Okay? And then there's what we might call realization bodhicitta. And the first two, you know, like just aspiration and application are like, you know, sometimes they're called relative bodhicitta. They're bodhicitta that takes place in the realm of relativity. There's me aspiring to this. There's this relative to that, right? There's all that. And then we have absolute bodhicitta, or realization bodhicitta. Not that this is the real one. You just have that relative stuff. It's kind of relative bodhicitta, but it's not real bodhicitta. It's absolute in the sense that as a unity, it is the union of wisdom and compassion manifesting. It's suchness. Right? It contains aspiration. It contains application. Right? It's all there. It's beyond words. Right? And in the sense that it can't be, it's not dissolved into various parts. It's a kind of inseparable, natural, innate wholeness. Okay? So don't worry about it. But I'm just saying, bodhicitta is a big deal, right? But what level is meaningful to you, right? And this is what we're beginning to contemplate here. Smiling, breathing, present, right? You recognize these are 3 of the 5 supports that I write about in another book for you, This Nectar of Naturalness, right? Goes into, actually they're not like each one is dealing with these little topics and you have to study them all and put them together. Actually, I think if you work on it, you'll find that the whole shebang is found in any one of them, right? But this nectar of naturalness really goes into these supports in, you know, I talk about it and kind of speculate on possibilities with it in a bigger sense. And this runs all the way through our sadhana. You know, I know some of you have cheated and gone to the end, right? I absolutely know that some of you have done that, right? But actually it's not the really end, but you know, I'll just remind you that when we finish with the yoga of effortless naturalness and suchness, and the whole thing is like extraordinary, and then the smiling, breathing, present, appreciating, offering, blessing. End of sadhana. Right? It's good at the beginning, it's good in the middle, it's good at the end. Right? So now we're working with this. We might work with this. And I mean, we could make a detour and spend, I've already in some of our Sunday classes, I think one of the last series we did, we went into a lot of detail with this nectar of naturalness and the kind of possibilities in it. So, and just for your kind of, if there's any curiosity in it for this, it's neither here nor there. But the reason why this nectar of naturalness was written when it was because I was writing a commentary on the Samantabhadra Sadhana. And I realized that smiling, breathing, present, appreciating, and offering was so big, right, that I needed, so I thought I'd write a little footnote or a little kind of extended booklet, right, and then that's done, and then I can get on to the thing. But then I realized, oh, actually, this is the Samantabhadra right here. This nectar of naturalness, another definition of Samantabhadra, It's this immediacy, nectar of naturalness. That, I mean, it's not a traditional translation of Samantabhadra, but it wouldn't be erroneous. One could actually make this kind of equivalent. Okay? So anyway, we'll go back to the beginning where we're supposed to be, because we don't cheat, we don't skip ahead. We're dutiful students. We go one step at a time. Smiling, breathing, present. Okay? And right now, can you when I say that smiling, can you get it? Breathing, present. If we don't have this, smiling, breathing, present, like I am a present for the world. This is the best present I can give, is me and all my openness. And this is the present of the world that I'm receiving. It's a mutual gifting. Right? Then if we don't have that, then the rest of it's just words. But if we can touch this, right, with an expanding appreciation for the spacious, open, interbeing, interknowing nature of all experience. And I'm going to change the sadhana here. Every time I kind of go into this sadhana in more detail, I'm going to make little tiny changes. You got to tweak to the point where it's no longer worth tweaking because it's not better, it's just different. Right? But all experience, the interbeing, inter-knowing nature of all experience. And so Nathan, of course, this destroys his practice, because immediately he's trying to, all experience, right? And that's not actually what it's referring to, right? So we could get rid of all, right? And perhaps say this ongoing, to kind of direct ourselves back to the living that we're doing, right? So here's the real addition. You have to kind of make corrections as you go. Okay? Smiling, breathing, present, with an expanding appreciation. To me that suggests that it's ever expanding. It's not, it's expanding now, and then a year later it's still expanding, and it's still expanding. Right? Appreciation for the spacious, this kind of unpin-downable, ungraspable, open, interbeing, interknowing nature of this ongoing experience of me smiling, breathing, present, appreciating, body, mind, community, right? Settled, pristine stillness, vivid awakeness, right? Contemplating, right? This ongoing experience. Feel the deep stirring of bodhicitta. And then you could say, well, let's just skip that for now, because we don't really understand what bodhicitta is. So we'll say, feel the deep stirring of a naturally evolving disposition for cultivating both in ourselves and others the magnificent human potential for panoramic, multi-realmed awareness and ceaseless compassion and love. Okay? So you're beginning of the sadhana here, we're just settling down into something, right? And at the beginning, with this expanding, possibly, I don't think this is going to be like this necessarily, but possibly when you practice the first section, right, you were maybe going into all the interbeingness of your body. It's almost like your experience, right? Your body, mind, community, right? It's kind of like this. But as we expand it, we begin to realize that this interbeingness, which I call my inner, is kind of dancing, a kind of responsive knowing, a kind of responsive dancing with things that traditionally we call outer, with the sunshine, with the animal that just walked by, with that, right? And so this starts to open up. And what we have here is like a colossal meditation on space. We're settling into a space of knowing, an open space of knowing. So it doesn't say so in here, but you know, an auxiliary kind of theme, which I've spoken about many times and written about in all sorts of different places, right, is this mandala of sentient, spacious, sentient space that I talk about sometimes. Right? At the beginning I talked about a mandala of space, right? But I began to talk about it as sentient space because I wanted people to realize that the space was made up of sentient movement, of like responsive, aware movement. And so let's just have a quickie on this. We're smiling, we're breathing, we're present. And in the first one, right, it was almost like we were looking in, and now in this one we're saying we could also look in and out. It's we're expanding within and expanding without. It's a huge exploration. Could keep us busy for the rest of our life. Could keep us busy for lifetimes if you believed in that kind of metaphor. Okay? So we're sitting here smiling, breathing, present, and you're aware, become aware of space in front of you. And you see, the space is not just kind of, we're not talking about empty space. There's a feeling that there's a space in front of you. There's a kind of a intuitive feeling. It's visceral that there's space in front of you. You don't, if you kind of move your muscles in a certain way, you expect to be able to lean forward. Like if I was sort of sitting there with my nose stuck in the bathroom door, right, and I kind of lean forward, my nose should start to press back. You know, and I would have a sense that there isn't this space, like we're talking about spacious, open, has a visceral, tactile, kinesthetic quality here. That's what we're beginning to work with. It's also metaphoric for other things, but you know, in a kind of a space of mind and so on. But let's work with our experience, right? So we have a sense there's space in front of you. And it's very clear that as a human being, this space in front of you is absolutely filled with objects. Is it not? You can see in front of you there's space that's filled with visual objects. There's space in front of you, in a sense filled, it gets a little bit harder to speak about, but kind of audio objects or smelly objects. As I said, you get a little bit closer, you'll get the full whiff of me, right? Or, you know, if you get really, really close and we get a little bit kind of dicey for a public class, you could taste me. Right? It's still, this is this tactile, this touch, this contact. What is this, you know? Right? But there's a sense of a space in front, and there's a sense that, like many of the things in front are living beings, they're sentient beings whose life is impacting my life. Even the things I call non-sentient, the wall, if you like, right, is impacting my life. Right? I mean, without it, I wouldn't see wall. I wouldn't be speaking about wall. Right? There's an interbeingness, an interknowingness. There's a relational engagement with what's happening in front. And I look behind and I see there's a space behind. It's amazing how I forgot the space behind me. Okay? Practice walking meditation, walking backwards. That really helps to kind of awaken this appreciation of space behind you, because suddenly you might bump into, you've got a vested interest in being more aware of remembering. Right? As if you had eyes and ears and nose and so on in the back of your head, in the back of your body. And you're sensing there's space behind you. And it's filled with objects. You can remember them. You're not sure? Check it out. Right? Come make it real. I'm going to do this quickly. And there's space beside us. Spend some time checking out what's going on the right and on the left, right? Look above, right? In your mind's eye, you might even go up. There's space above me. Ooh, there's a light. Ooh, I see the light. And the roof, right? I mean, in my mind's eye, I might even go further and realize above me are stars and so on. But all we need for this meditation to work is to expand our appreciation a little bit further than where we were. You don't try to expand your attention to take in what the James Webb telescope is picturing these days, right? There's not some ideal totality you're trying to get to. We're just Mahagata. We're engaging in a Bodhicitta, right? A flowering, a blossoming. Oh yeah, I forgot, right? And look below you, and below you there's space below you, right? And it kind of extend it. And it may be that with familiarity, if you do an awful lot of gardening and digging and so on and so forth, it might not be too difficult for you to have a sense that there are critters living in the soil underneath your feet. If you never look, you'll never know, right? But so you have a sense of, like, you are now, as you sit in this room, are you listening to me? Right? So what does this, how can we illustrate this? Is there kind of a line between you and me? Like, as you listen to me like this? Or do you have sensations in your bottom or in your knee? Or has your stomach done funny things whilst you're listening to me? Or could it be that the sensations that you find, behind you, beside you, and so on, are all kind of woven together into this wholeness of living, which is really hard to talk about because it's so complex and so dynamic, right? It's constantly shifting, changing, and so on. Nathan?
So, totally touching. The question that really is sitting around is, what's the sense of I that's watching me? How am I possibly here?
Yeah. Well, my suggestion,
What is that?
my suggestion at this stage is to just let that question float very, very gently and do the work. I really don't have any confidence whatsoever that you'll resolve that question in a meaningful way without doing the work. And if you don't even bother with the question but you do the work, I have confidence you will resolve the question. I could be kind of traditional here and say, I'm sorry, but. And I've been trying to make it sound easy and available to all beings all their life. But there's no way you can replace the whole of your life with a bit of your life. You live in the fullness of the living that you are. You might not like it. You might want to live in your concept, or you might want to live in the idea or the mind or the thoughts or the appreciation of someone else, right? But actually, that's not where you live. Okay? And so, in a sense, we're just beginning with, I'm trying to show how we're just beginning where we are. The spaciousness doesn't have to be some huge, gigantic, shunyata, total, universal kind of thing. It's just like, if I'm aware of being in this, and then all of a sudden, it's a decompression, in a way, like you, and then you kind of get used to moving in this space. And then you get used to moving in this space. Right? So you get, space above, space below. Now, we haven't finished though, right? Because this was kind of looking and appreciating the space that seems to be out there. Now, we turn the looking and we look in there, whatever that means. And you go, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, don't worry about it, right? The fact of the matter is that there's probably not a day goes by when you don't refer to inner and outer. You're not concerned about defining exactly what it is then. You act on it, right? And maybe you find that the inner is kind of outer, and the outer is kind of inner. It doesn't matter. Maybe, they say Avalokiteshvara, the Holy Lord and Bodhisattva, was moving in the deep course of wisdom that takes one beyond, and he looks down from on high from this glorious, gigantic view and saw that all things are empty. Right? But, maybe it was Avalokiteshvara, he didn't look down from on high. He kind of looked, he listened, he smelt, he touched, he tasted, he empathized, he thought about, he engaged in frontwards, backwards, sideways, in and out, and so on, and appreciated the kind of interdancing of happening that was taking place. Right? The key here is the look. You might as well just say, in the end, it's just like, don't worry about, just look. Right? So we look inward. Maybe inward is just at a very ordinary level. You realize you've got organs. And you've got sensations, which definitely feel like this sensation is inside me. It's different from the sensation of the wind on my skin. That feels like it came from the outside. And it's not too often that you have a sense that your heart's beating outside of you. You're sitting there very quietly and over here. It could happen. It's not impossible for such a thing to happen, but it's not a common experience. Most of the time people, when they feel their heart beating, they would describe it as being inside them. So we look inside, right? And we see we're kind of a dancing of this. And with our knowledge, again, like if you don't if you don't explore the soil, you'll never understand or appreciate that there are worms and critters and so on in the soil. If you don't explore your physiology, you're not going to appreciate that you've got organs and everything. Maybe you think you've got devas running around in there doing deals with each other, right? And they're kind of fighting with each other, and that's why you feel sick. But if you look, you might find you've got muscles and bones and tissues and nerves and nervous system, and right, we go further and we've got cells, autopoiesis, we've got dancings of molecular cities, and what's going on inside is relating to what's going on outside, and what's going on outside is relating to going on inside. And so we're cultivating this kind of space, and we're resting, we're settling into this pristine stillness, which is unbelievably dynamic and constantly changing. It's not a stillness of frozen.
So, Jachin, when you say do the work, are you suggesting that if we get, kind of caught up in the flow of the contemplating bodhicitta without having first really settled into that embodied, felt sense, we may miss Samantabhadra.
Well,
because we're so caught up now in kind of how amazing is this compassion and Avalokiteshvara, kind of trying to wake me up with compassion, but now I'm so caught up in that I kind of lost my embodied, so I won't wake up to the fullness.
So when I say do the work, that's kind of a very gross way of speaking, right? But in what's out, I look at this and I see a kind of natural sequence of supports. That there are support in the sense that I can engage in what's suggested here to the best of my understanding and ability, and it supports something good, right? So utilize the supports. That's doing the work, right? It doesn't say anything about here is where did you begin and where did you end off. There's nothing in the text that says that. It doesn't say, what's the nature of mind or anything here. It's just talking. It's actually quite ordinary, but I'm trying to show you that this ordinary is from the very beginning, like extraordinary. It's not like we're in, and I have to do this because we live in a culture that's always looking for this great, big, fantastic, glorious finale. know.
So if I do the bodhicitta work, it is an expression of the all good Samantabhadra
Already.
But I might not really awaken to that because I haven't really got the experience.
Well, it's not so much awakened to it. It's like it could be. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's awakened to the fullness of it. That gives a different kind of slight, by adding that to the fullness of it. It's almost like you've got. It's like. Mostly you could probably almost recognize what I was just nattering on about. But it's really different than a full symphony and a colossal choir, right? It's still the song. It's the song of bodhicitta. You only play one song. Your whole life is just playing the song of bodhicitta. But I mean, we can forget about the word really. I mean, it's kind of used here in this tradition. So this, like, in the midst of this, spacious, right? You're just sitting there. And then in the midst of this, because this is very much your experience, you're doing your meditation, right? And then it's kind of coming out of this, you realize that there's something quite wondrous about this. Maybe it's a very pristine little special moment for you and so on. It's not happening very often. But there's something very wonderful about this. And there's a kind of a recognition maybe that we're, a lot of our societal activity is just running around like proverbial chickens with their heads cut off, worrying about this, fussing about that, when this is so instantly kind of readily available to you wherever you are, in bed, in a hospital, in a refugee camp, in a glorious palace, in a beautiful garden. It doesn't matter what, this is available. It's just so simple. You don't have to pay for it. It's, anyone can discover it without even reading the text. It just kind of, it's already happening, right? And so out of this comes this kind of deep stirring, a kind of a naturally evolving disposition for cultivating both in ourselves and in others, to share this with others, right? This kind of human potential for panoramic awareness, right? So it's like, I just borrowed that phrase because I liked it from lexics, and it's kind of, he said, panoramic awareness and ceaseless concern. Right? He was kind of trying to encapsulate his understanding of the precious human birth, right? That there's this potential for panoramic awareness, outer, inner, mental, physical, panoramic, like it's more than panoramic in a monodimensional way, multi-dimensional, multi-domained way. Right? We get glimpses of this, right? And ceaseless concern, he said, because it was a nice phrase, panoramic awareness is ceaseless concern. But I thought I'll put ceaseless compassion and love. So that's the concern, right? And this is the yearning. This is the yearning to do this. The kind of, it's almost like a remembering that this is important to me. I'm coming back, I remember, this is important to me. And when I know this is important to me, I don't have any problem of giving it time. It's not an obligation, I've got to practice more or do this work. But we need to, this is really important for me. Yeah, I got to go to work. But I'm not going to stop this. This is really important to me. I'm going to do it at work. Right? And then a kind of, almost like a prayer of aspiration, right? Through cultivating this immeasurable, all-encompassing expanse of spontaneous love and clear-seeing presence. Not this ultimate glorious thing that you conceptualize, but this expanded moment of feeling, wow, this is really, meaningful. This is it. This is it's your juice. Right? Through cultivating this immeasurable, all-encompassing. It's immeasurable because the universe is still in, if you like, it's still in process. So you go to measure, it's 3 meters long. And then you say, are you sure? And it's 3 meters and 1 millimeter. it's changing. Every time you do it, it's different. So in the end you go, it's kind of immeasurable. You can only make kind of relative measurements within artificially agreed upon parameters, like between 12 o'clock and 5, where is it? And then you can say where it is. But if you just say where is it, you have to go, but it's in a different place between 6 and 7. It's like, it's immeasurable. And it's all encompassing. It's like if something comes up that you never imagined, it's now part of it. You know what I mean? Like it's all encompassing. Expanse of spontaneous love and clear seeing presence. Just very ordinary. Right? For you, what you want is to develop what is love and clear seeing presence for you. You may come back in a few years and go, what is love and clear seeing presence for me? Now I look back on that and I see that actually I was pretty closed in these areas and I was still trying to control and so on. It's not, that was love and clear seeing presence. You proceed by loving and clear seeing presenting. Okay? It doesn't actually improve. Have you improved over your life? It's sort of like you don't, in a sense, when you really get down to it, is the living that you are now a different living than the living that you were when you were 5 years old? Kind of yes, but kind of no. Why is it that old people don't feel old, except when they're achy? And then you say, I feel old, but that's kind of ridiculous. Actually, you mean I feel achy. Right? Or I feel frustrated, or I feel whatever, that sort of comes, it's a kind of response to just difference. Through cultivating this immeasurable, all-encompassing expanse of love and clear seeing, may we loosen the hypnosis of samsara. Not may I abandon it, may I escape from it, may I deal with it, may I fix it. But it's at least, this is a very small, humble aspiration. May I just loosen this hypnosis of just, when you're hypnotized, you can spend a whole day just running after the buck, running after the dollar, running after praise, running away from blame, running after pleasure, running away from pain. It's like the concatenation of things that we all do together, which it goes on and on and on, and you go, hey, it doesn't, and then you still have to go and make yourself something to eat. You still have to do things, you will, but in a sense you're bringing this kind of intangible attitude to living. And you're realizing this is something I can activate, I can actually intentionally do. And increasingly you realize that actually this is your work. Doing this is your work, not going to an office and kind of typing out reports. Right? That's not to say that going to an office and typing out reports is irrelevant, but it's not actually your work. Your work is a kind of a noun way of describing the working that you are. And the working that you are is the working of the universe giving rise to a sense of being someone who's doing work. Right? It's like we're in this. Right? So this I just will hold it in your mind, Jen. Right? May we loosen the hypnosis of samsara and release into the ocean of collaborative creation. This is just an aspiration, that's all. It's not standard that you're setting for yourself, and you say, well, I'm not releasing into the ocean of collaborative, as and so on, and anyway, it doesn't feel collaborative, and they're making me do it, and I don't want to do it, and on and on and on, right? Don't worry about that. You're not failing because you don't do it. This is not, you're just aspiring, that's all. This is just aspiration, but aspiration is huge. Right? You have to become a reality fanatic. Right? Instead of a religious fanatic, you're a reality fanatic. You're kind of like, we become fanatical about this. We don't have to, at the beginning, maybe we think about it all the time. We put little notes on the fridge, inside cupboards and so on. We breathe, smiling, right? It's kind of like, because we're kind of total fanatics about it. We set up courses, teach everyone else to do it, right? I mean, the part of teaching is actually if teaching is truly effective, right? There's always one student who's going to get it. Is the teacher. You go, blah, 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 and then Tarchin goes, oh God, that's a good idea. Maybe I should try that myself. Right? And we're bringing this closer and closer to home. We're releasing into this, wherever it is. May we manifest ways of living that uplift all beings. And this is not, we've forgotten all about our spacious inter-knowing nature, our body-mind community that we're settling into. All of this is happening. And this aspiration isn't, I have to make it histrionic. I have to go like this to give you a sense of the juice of it. But when it's really happening, it's like, it's quiet. It's very quiet. It's a very quiet kind of yes. It's a quiet yes to life. And it's got strength. It's not a matter of justifying it to others. You're not trying to sell it. You're not trying to push it on anyone. You're not trying to even push it on yourself. It's just at these moments. Right? Jan, do you still have...
So to me this is like a real point of challenge, personal challenge, because this is where I might lose my comfortable posture in samsara's game, because I'm totally caught up now in loss or gain, in the 8 worldly concerns. And it's really a challenge to catch that, to return to the comfortable posture and loosen that samsaric pattern, because that's what the world demands of us in samsara's game. So how do I play out here?
Demands ignorance.
How do I, and still really, I'm in the world, but my real work is to be in full realization of Samantabhadra at every moment in its play. So not just Samantabhadra, but Samantabhadri. And yet, now here I am, I've lost my comfortable posture, and oh my God, I'm really caught up in something.
Well, I mean, this is what we're talking about in my mind is kind of skillful means, is practicality, right? And I remember I thought at one point I wanted to study psychology at university, and I discovered to my dismay that the entire psychology department was behavioralism, and we were they wanted to run rats through mazes and stuff like that, and it just seemed so far away from what I intuited that psychology might be about. Right? And in there you learn about conditioned response and Pavlov and salivating dogs and stuff like this, and And so we were disdainful of that. I got all excited because Fritz Perls lived on Vancouver Island at the time, and so we were all going to do Gestalt therapy and advanced stuff like this. You know, it was like really integrative, full Monty therapy, not just kind of stuff, right? And now I had to become very humble in my life because I realized I was really I've come back to behavioralism. Right? That, you know, if you for example, if you sing a song every single day for year and year and year and year and year, it'll get wormed into your brain. You know, you get a brain worm or something of this song that goes around. Or I got advertising jingles that come up spontaneously. You know, they're triggered by something, and all of a sudden, you know, some kind of ridiculous advertising jingle comes up from when I was 5 years old. Like, I can't remember all the factors of enlightenment and the Abhidhamma. I can't, you know, but I can remember a Mars bar commercial. It's that memory is not just in my concepts. It's kind of right there into the kind of thing, you know. I'm Papa the Sailor Man, Papa the Sailor Man, you know. Fond of my spinach because I'm strong to the finish because I eat my spinach, right? And so, you know, in a sense, like part of this kind of idea of regular practice is kind of like a regular revisiting of hopefully kind of juicy things, and that's why like in a lot of the Tibetan sadhana, I mean, why bother with the sadhanas? It's all said that in the kind of texts and in the sutras and so on, and yet we have these sadhanas. But in the sadhana, there's a use of kind of poetic language, poetry and so on. That kind of sneaks in ways that didactic language doesn't always do. You know, like it much more readily, right, goes in there. And so you have prayers, you have kind of, you know, maybe there might be a non-draw text or something. There might be, you know, there's the buried in this last verse of aspiration are the 4 thoughts that turn the mind. Right? They're, all 4 of them are right there. It's all classical, but it's just not spoken about, and I didn't kind of, you know, if I wrote a commentary on the text, I could be very kind of academic about it and show that it's all there. Yeah. Right? But the thing is that if you do these, like, I find, for example, verses, frequently I pause, mindfully I breathe, simplicity, openness, clarity, connection and caring, flowering forth. Ooh. It's like, you know, how did I do it? I did it by stupid, blind repetition so many times. It's just Pavlovian conditioning kind of thing. It's awful. It's embarrassing. But part of our creatureliness is that is this mystery that we call habit. Right? And we've got a lot of kind of life conflicting habits. So how about maybe a lot of our Dharma practice is actually just throwing in some life supportive habits, so to speak. And what you might find, you know, you're doing every day, I take refuge in the Buddha and Dharma and Sangha, right, and recite the Bodhisattva vow and recite the precepts and recite, you know, the meditation on the body and these pujas that you do. And then you find in the middle of the day, just one word or a verse that pops in just strangely enough at the absolute perfect time when it would be useful to remember it, right? Now, in a sense, you've internalized you come to the Dharma and you come to the classes on Dharma and so on to be reminded of what you kind of know deep inside. If you come expecting to find out something that's not you and you've yet to become, you'll never find it. Right? It's just like all of Dharma teaching is just remembering work, right? It's kind of like, and so I'm playing the reminder here, and then if this works well, you feel a little bit reminded. I don't quite know what you're being reminded of. There's not necessarily a direct connection between the words and concepts I'm using and what valuable thing you're being reminded of. But after all these years, I'm quite confident that it does happen frequently. Not always, but frequently. And so, you know, you have your patterns, you're caught up, if you like, to some degree in, you know, in convention. Maybe we should just say that rather than samsara, because it's too kind of, you almost packaged it as this terrible thing, you know. There's nothing wrong with convention, right? But there is something wrong with convention if it is kind of restrictive and constraining and eventually becomes life conflictive. Then convention isn't so good. And then of course there's people who, in a sense, find their strength in being the custodians of convention. They've got a police force and judges and jurors and legal systems and et cetera, right? So we're, in a sense, loosening this hypnosis. To me, I like the word loosening, right? Because for me, it's like sometimes, you know, we use these, we get hay, like pea straw comes up here, and sometimes hay bales and so on. And we keep all the string that comes off the hay bale, right? And it's this kind of like fibrous, plasticky kind of string. And rather than just kind of trashing it in the thing, we use it again and again and again we'll tie up something in the garden. And sometimes I go around there and I have to untie it, and the knot has been so tight I can't even begin to do it. And so I have to get kind of needle nose pliers sometimes and grab a little bit and just pull a little bit. And once it slowly starts to loosen, then it unravels, right? But the loosening is kind of, it's quite gentle. It's not, I don't take a hatchet to it. You know, I could get frustrated and just take the knife out, cut it or something like that. Or I could just kind of, you tease it out, you loosen it, you know, it's just slowly loosening the hypnosis. And your tool for this is remembering. Your tool for loosening the hypnosis is the remembering. And each part of this could serve as a tool for doing any other part. So in other words, although, you know, in the very first part you're arranging yourself in a comfortable posture, and when you do that, you already know something about loosening the hypnosis of samsara, but you've got miles to go before you get there. You know, it's like, it's a holographic sadhana, in the sense that every part opens up to reveal the whole, right? No part exists without the other parts. And yet if we try and work on the whole thing at once, it's too much. So that's why I say just sit down into the fullness of your living and open your appreciation for space in front, beside, above and below. And then experiment with walking with this. Experiment with changing your posture with this. Experiment with washing the dishes. I'm choosing, hopefully, not hugely emotionally challenging situations, right? But gradually what you find is that if this is interesting for you, and as you're expanding into this, right, and you begin to realize it's not just an interbeing of objects, but it's a kind of interrelating, a kind of interknowing, right? We've got our 6 domains and dimensions of relational knowing, you know, emergent corporeal, and subjective and intersubjective, and verbal and story, and I mean, there's all these things are weaving in, right? But we're not trying to sort of hold all this big bundle of concepts at one time. We're just here. But gradually it starts to become, you know, you kind of like have a habit for Dharma, if you like, right? And although you go, well, yeah, but what about the pure realization? You know, it's not just a bit of habit, right? But it's like we'll just set that question aside for a moment. Just soften that question and realize that in terms of skillful means, not emphasizing wisdom, but maybe wisdom's there, but skillful means, right? Cultivate these patterns. And the more we do, the more they will, you know, like you push the wheel, it gets going, and then you stop pushing and it keeps going. After a while it runs out. Right? And then you have to push it again and it keeps going. But if your wheel becomes really heavy, do you know that that's actually one of the meanings for guru? One of the if you look up in the Sanskrit dictionary, one of the meanings for guru is heavy. Heavy, man. You know, right? But it's just sort of like heavy, not in a kind of a weighty thing, but it's like import. It's like boom, boom. You know, it's kind of like heavy, right? And when you push the heavy wheel, it's hard to get it going, but once it's going, you can actually have a holiday for a little while, and it comes back and it's woo. You think, well, I think I'll stop now, and it goes whoa, and you keep going, you know, and you go, and so we're caught on the wheel of samsara, right? And we can increasingly sort of begin to recognize and appreciate the wheel of interbeing, interknowing, right? That's happening, and I've avoided for many years trying to kind of say to people in speaking that they should practice or they need to practice more. But now is the point where I'm just going to say there's actually still up to everybody, but there's no way you can get away from this. If you proceed by the doing, there's not a piece of knowledge you can take away and get right, and then you've got it, but you don't have to do it. And it's and the beauty of a sadhana like this, to me, is that it's not asking you at any stage to do anything other than what you're already doing. If we asked ourselves to do something that we weren't doing, it would be really hard. But we're just, and somewhere in between these two first parts, we've already started to kind of translucentize this kind of idea of self and other, because it's like, you know, the beginning is I am taking up a comfortable posture, and then we're expanding into the interbeing, interknowing nature, right? And it's kind of like, well, where am I? Where are you? What is you? What isn't? Right? That is going to emerge. It can't not emerge when you're in that kind of experience. And then my suggestion was simply that you appreciate that question, but just let it be gentle and stay with the supports. See what happens. What would happen if I lived with kind of panoramic awareness and ceaseless compassion and love? You know, what would happen if that? Well, there's only one way to find out. Try it. So we're in a kind of like, we talk about how climate change and so on, we human beings are in this kind of colossal, crazy experiment on planet Earth. And we might sort of screw it up, right? So because as if somehow we should know everything and the right thing to do first and then we act. But actually that's not how life appears to have evolved. It just kind of gets going. So I'm actually going to add a line to this last verse, prayer. So I'll share it with you now. It doesn't really matter. It's just kind of adding little bits. It's kind of appealing to my sense of things. So I'll just read it once more. Through cultivating this immeasurable, all-encompassing expanse of spontaneous love and clear-seeing presence, may we loosen the hypnosis of samsara and release into the ocean of collaborative creation. Being this ocean of primordial contemplation, may we manifest ways of living that uplift all beings. And it's just to emphasize once again that this is not I am contemplating out there, but I am being this ocean of contemplation. Right? And we're just feeling in the midst of this, it's not an add-on should, it's just that go deeply into it, and I think you'll find it spontaneously arising. You're feeling spacious and wonder-struck, and you see this person walking around and they're really shut down and miserable, and you'd love to say, hey, the birds are singing, hey, the sun is shining, this is very ordinary, this is not deep, profound Prajnaparamita. This natural feeling that you want to share your joy, your goodness with others is so innate. Every little child does this before they get damaged, right? Oh, look what I found, come and look, see, and they're all constantly trying to share the stuff that they discover till it maybe gets squashed, or they're told they shouldn't look, or they shouldn't question, or they shouldn't explore, and this natural kind of tendency to explore goes, and along with it, the natural tendency to share. And so I think that's it for this morning. Any final thoughts or comments from... I haven't spent too much time looking at the screen, but I hope you haven't felt ignored. By the power of these wholesome activities, may our lives be rich with awakening. Living thus, may we abandon all unwholesomeness. In the very midst of this extraordinary dancing of birth, illness, old age, and death, may we help ourselves and all beings to realize our true interbeing, interknowing nature. Sarva Mangalam, Sarva Mangalam, Sarva Mangalam. Thank you all. And thank you all, you beings in different parts of the world, wherever you are. Right? And I think it is a beautiful day, and so we'll have lunch in, what is it?
Probably about 15 minutes.
About 12 or so. So anyway, I invite people to please have a wander in the garden. And
do you want to invite anybody to carry up things?
No, it's all up.
They're all up?
They miraculously brought it all up. Yeah. So good.
Thank you, Judge.
Good. Thank you.